Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Alhamdulillah. Thank you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبا القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Can we have a second loud salawat for the love of Fatima Zahra alayhi salam? Can we have a third loud salawat for the Imam of our time, Imam al-Mahdi, Ajjalullah ta'ala faraja. Allahumma. My dear brothers, sisters, respected scholars, elders, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, I wanted to congratulate you all on the birth anniversary of Imam Ridha alayhi salam, who we have all gathered to honor and remember today. Secondly, I wanted to welcome you all to the first ever conference of Amanati, an organization based to help spread awareness for those in need. And inshallah, this is the first of many more conferences to come. And thirdly, I wanted to thank greatly the Al-Khou'i Foundation for making this conference possible, especially Ayatollah Dr. Sayyid Fadl Milani, who has helped us make this conference possible today. So thank you very much. Now, just to begin, I just wanted to briefly talk a little bit about the Amanati organization, which I truly believe has not been given enough exposure within our community, and it is fundamental for the growth of our community. Now, Amanati is an organization which, first of all, disability is a topic which is hardly spoken about within our community, and it's extremely important that we speak about disability for awareness and understanding and acceptance. So, statistics state that in the UK there is around 14.6 million disabled individuals in the UK, children and adults, and a huge portion of those disabled belong to the Muslim community. But I wanted to ask you all a question for those sitting here, and to answer within yourself: how many individuals that do we know that have disability in our community? How many of those individuals with disability have we welcomed within our community? How many of those who are disabled have we invited to participate and contribute towards our society and towards our centres? And how many of those individuals have we approached and spoken to? And how have we supported those who have a disability or special needs, or have supported the parents of those who have a child with a disability? These are all questions that we must ask ourselves to see if we truly do cater for the disabled within our community. Now, Amanati is an organization with a mission to empower and support children with special needs so that their abilities are celebrated in the community. Their mission is to be a fully inclusive community that provides equal opportunities to all, regardless of abilities. It was set up by hard-working parents, individuals, and professionals, inshallah, to create this platform to talk about disability. Now, today we have a jam-packed event with prominent speakers, and inshallah it will be a very, very fruitful discussion, because we don't often see the discussion of disability being discussed in our community. Now, this is enough of me speaking, but I have 3 announcements that I've been told by the organizers before we begin. Number 1, there is a stall outside, and there's teas and biscuits, so please help yourself to the tea and biscuits. And there are volunteers outside, so if you want to contribute or you want to volunteer for future events, then please do speak to volunteers, because they really do need all the help that they can get. Number 2, for the parents, if there are children, there is a hall downstairs which is available for anyone that has children. And if you have a child with special needs, then please do let the volunteers know, and inshallah they will be able to facilitate for you. And finally, Amanati is an organization that is not backed by anyone. It's a charity, and I have seen for myself that the parents that have set up Amanati have sometimes even pulled money out of their own pocket to help run some of the events. So if anyone wants to contribute towards helping Amanati for the future, then please do. Now, before we begin, every conference that we have attended, the organizers usually get the best Quran reciters out there. They get the Quran reciters that have studied the sound, the pronunciation, the recitation of the Holy Quran, and they get someone who is fluent and eloquent in the Arabic language and in its Quranic recitation. But today, the organizers decided they will do something different. They have decided that they will invite someone with a physical and intellectual disability to recite the Holy Quran for today's event, to include those with a disability. Now, if we look back in history, we see that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, salawat, he chose Bilal to recite the adhan. Now, Bilal, as we know, couldn't say his sheen, he used to say seen. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the seen of Bilal is the sheen in the eyes of Allah. This is to show that in the eyes of Allah, it is not the physical manifestation of your recitation. It is the purity and the sincerity in your heart. If Allah has created someone with a disability and their inability to pronounce their words, to speak, to recite the Holy Quran, it doesn't mean that their worship or their recitation is any less in the eyes of Allah. Allah has created everyone in a certain way, and He will accept everyone's worship, whether they can pronounce the words, whether they have the ability to or not. So today, when the organizers invited, they actually called me and they said that we want Sayyid Ali Al-Alawi to recite the Holy Quran, which is my brother, he was born with Down syndrome. And then I called him. I said, Sayyid Ali, they want you to recite the Quran for the event. He said, me? I said, yeah. He said, it's my dream to recite the Quran in front of everyone. And he's smiling now. But it is to show that even those with a disability, even those that have an intellectual disability, even those who cannot pronounce their words, they still want to be included. They still want to participate. And it is their dream to serve Allah. It is their dream to serve the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. So with the loudest salawat, please do welcome my brother, Sayyid Ali Al-Alawi. Please come to the stage to recite the Holy Quran. Ali? Once again, yes, Ali, stand there. اللهم صل على محمد وآل. Allah. Allah. Ali, I want a second. And the last one, he wants to recite a dua instead of a Quran. So he will be reciting a quick dua now. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. And just to clarify, that last dua was in fact taught to him by our late father, who passed away a couple of months ago. And he specifically said, when we told him to recite the Holy Quran, he said, I want to recite this dua that Baba had taught me. And it's beautiful because my father, may Allah bless his soul inshallah, used to always say that every child is a blessing. Even if a child is born with a disability, this is a blessing. Allah does not make any mistakes. If Allah creates a child with a disability, that is his beauty in the eyes of Allah. And when my brother was born, my father actually thanked Allah for granting him a son. And he taught him this dua. And I see this, now my father has passed on, but I see my brother every single day, he does sit on the prayer mat and he reads that dua. ربي اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. And I truly believe that my father is getting the blessings in the hereafter, inshallah. So, as it's the Mawlud of Imam Ridha alayhi salam, we will start with poetry, and we will be, inshallah, inviting up next Muhammad Abbas Ja'far. As Muhammad Abbas Ja'far, we have seen him in our screens the last couple of months, gracing the Shia Voice screens, who has reached the finals. His poetry has captured the hearts of many out there. By day, Muhammad Abbas Ja'far is a deputy head teacher in a wonderfly diverse school and wholeheartedly believes in inclusion for all within an educational context. He is fascinated by words and literature, writing and performing poetry in his spare time. So please do welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Like the sister said, inclusion is a big part of what we do in education, and I think this is a good step forward that we're doing it and speaking about in our communities as well, inshallah. There's many people with disabilities, there's many children in schools with disabilities, and we try to make them included. Our Prophet was a mercy to mankind, to every single person. And if we can do anything to make every single person included in our communities, then we should be doing it for sure. Inshallah, I'll be reciting 2 poems for you today. The first one is a biography of Imam Ridha alayhi salam, and the second one is a shorter one, and inshallah I need your help with it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ridha loved poetry and would often listen to Di'bil, whose words would make the Imam laugh and cry and feel. So today I will be a poet for you and tell you about Imam Ridha, for the ones who discuss the Ahlul Bayt will be saved from the nar. His father was Kadhimin al-Ghayza, for nothing angered him. Even though he was oppressed, he still remained Kadhim. His mother had many names, including Tuktum and Arwa. Some even called her Najma, for she shone brightly like a star. When his parents named him after Mawla and his sister after Zahra, the aim was very clear, that despite every tyrant's wish, these names would never disappear. So if you have a child, call them Ali if they are a boy. So we'll have 1,000,000 Haydars. We'll have 1,000,000 Haydars who'll fill our Mahdi with joy. And if you have a child, name her Fatima if she's a girl. So we'll have 1,000,000 Zahras in every corner of this world. Talking about Imam's sister, her name was Fatima II. She went where she was needed and the land of Qum beckoned. Like Nabi said about Zahra, Al-Kadhim said about Ma'suma, may your father be sacrificed for you, Fidaha Abuha. She narrated many ahadith, including the story of Ghadir. Her understanding is undeniable. Her knowledge is crystal clear. As they were growing up, the father was in jail so often that even though he wasn't there, his teachings weren't forgotten. This meant that Ar-Ridha became a lantern for every single Shia. He had to guide them out of darkness without a single shred of fear. Banu Abbas ruled with such an iron fist. His followers did taqiyya. Yet Ar-Ridha's intellect was so sharp, it's no wonder he's revered. At all this time, behind closed doors, their tyranny had embedded. Harun would take the lovers of Ali and have each one beheaded. So Imam kept a low profile in Medina and gave sermon after sermon and answered questions from every visitor in Arabic, in Hindi, and even in German. Harun thought by killing the 7th Imam that Bab al-Hawaij was no more. Yet Al-Kadhim lives through Ar-Ridha, who will forever be the door. Those who had collected khums for Al-Kadhim now just wanted to make a profit. They didn't care about Ridha's imamate, only about lining their own pockets. Ma'mud made Imam crown prince. It seemed a sincere proposal, but he was keeping his friends close and his enemies much closer. So Imam left Medina, and for a while in Qum remained. The first Imam to do 10 nights majalis for Imam al-Hussein. When Ridha arrived in Khorasan, Ma'mun welcomed him as his heir. Yet Imam turned him down, saying he'd never get a share. It wasn't Ma'mun's to distribute. If Allah gave him this position, and if he appointed himself, then he did so without permission. When Ali ibn Musa refused again, Ma'mun threatened Imam's life, at which point he had to accept and face all the trials and strife. No wonder he was called Ar-Ridha, the one who was always pleased, whether it was goodness or troubles he received. Ma'mun ensured on every coin Ridha's face was marked, yet Imam was worth so much more than every dirham in Hijaz. In Silsilatul Dhahab, the hadith of the golden chain, Ridha showed his direct link to God and made his right to imamate plain. He explained that kalima is a fortress, and to enter there's a condition. If you don't have love of Ali, Allah will never give you permission. Imam had complete control over all of God's creations. Even the deer that was given reprieve returned right back to its station. Imam's word could be trusted. He'd guarantee every single thing. It's for this reason he was rightly named Zamin. Imam even had complete control over both insan and jinn, and when the scholars came to debate him, he would always win. The priest said Christ was greatest, for no one ever prayed more. Yet Imam asked who Jesus prayed to, if he himself was Lord. The rabbi said he only followed prophets who did miracles. Imam asked why he rejected Jesus then. The rabbi was left quizzical. Then came the atheist, trying to contain God to time and space. He couldn't believe in a God who didn't have a face. But Imam said that we believed because we couldn't see. It showed how great he was and how limited are we. Imam was surrounded by so many in the court that it's hard to comprehend that a stranger in strange lands is how this story ends. So whilst the stranger in strange lands is how this story ends, never worry, Imam Ridha. In us, you will always have a friend. This is the bit I need help with you, inshallah. So the chorus is very simple. It's Ali, Ali, Ali. And then after everything I say, Jawab is Ali, just once. Inshallah, you get the hang of it. Just one chorus before. Now remember, when his parents named him after Mawla, their aim was very clear, that despite every tyrant's wish, Ali's name would never disappear. Ali, 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 born in the Kaaba, Ali, Sadqa in Salah, Ali, loved by Ikhlas, Ali, leader of Kufa, Ali, living Quran, Ali, breathing Quran, Ali, walking Quran, Ali, talking Quran, Ali, talking Quran, Ali, 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 sleeper in the bed, Ali, fed the unfed, Ali, stayed while they fled, Ali, stayed while they fled, Ali, leader not the led, Ali, Zahra he wed, Ali, struck on the head, Fustu he said, Fustu he said, Ali, 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 gate to the city, gate to the city, victor of Siffin, leading mu'mineen, Siratul Mustaqim, first to the deen, Hukuk ad-Din, Hafizuddin, Hafizuddin, he is the deen, he is the deen, Ali, 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 never number 4, Ali, lion at war, Ali, Haider when he rose, Ali, lifted the door, Ali, gave to the poor, Ali, we will implore, Ali, we do adore, Ali, you can't ignore, Ali, you can't ignore, Ali, 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 Haider Karar, Ali, Haldul Fikar, Ali, Abu Turab, Ali, Sher Khuda, Ali, Nukta Eba, Ali, Abul Abbas, Ali, Abul Hasnain, Ali, Shah Mashrakain, Ali, Wanat Hunain, Ali, Wanat Khandak, Ali, Wanat Khaybar, Ali, Wanat Jamal, Ali, Wanat Badar, Ali, in Akabar, Ali, in Akabar, Ali, 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 Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Citation, very touching words, mashallah. May Allah bless you, inshallah, and give you more tawfiq in this path, inshallah. As we are honoring Imam Ridha alayhi salam, Imam Ridha alayhi salam was known as the stranger of Khurasan, and many people with a disability, as being quoted by us, do feel like a stranger within our community. And I remember a sister which emailed me just before this conference. She said, I cannot bring my son with autism to the mosque because I feel like we will be shouted at, my son will be shouted at, we'll have strange looks. I feel like a stranger within the community. And we must then begin to think, why are people with a disability feel foreign or as a stranger in the community? Do we understand the struggles that parents with a child with a disability, do we understand the struggles they go through? Are we accepting to those with a invisible disability, those that do not appear to have a disability, or do we just judge them when we see them and their behavior? Up next is a very, very prominent speaker, which really does need no introduction. Dr. Ayatollah Sayyid Fadl Minani is our next speaker. He has been a key figure and educator within our community for many, 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 many years, perhaps when we were little children, both within the Hui Center and outside the center. He is the head of Islamic law and jurisprudence in Islamic College. He has published many, many books, which I'm sure many of us have written, including Frequently Asked Questions on Islam. Actually, that was on the bookshelf this morning when I saw that, so I wrote that down. So he doesn't need any introduction. So please to welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. The chair lady, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are gathering this evening for one of the most important subjects that really we have to be concerned with and look seriously about it. And that is to raise awareness in our community regarding disability. It is important because we try to tackle this from three different angles. The first one is when Allah Almighty, if someone afflicted by disability, Allah Almighty will compensate that by sharpening another sense which can help the person to achieve and to make progress. Yes, for example, we know in the history of Muslim communities that those who lost their sight, they were born without this ability, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala strengthened other senses to help them with achieving the highest level of education and whatever, possibilities for everybody. Here I mentioned two examples. One about Dr. Taha Hussein. In Arabic is called Amid al-Adab al-Arabi, the greatest outstanding figure in the Arabic literature, who supervised many PhD dissertations in Cairo, taught in many universities about Arabic literature and related subjects. He was blind. And of course, he was not born blind. He lost his sight when he was only 4 years old, but still was one of the examples of disabled people who managed to achieve highest level. In the contemporary time, we come to know about someone from Australia in the name of Nick Vujicic. I think most of you have heard of him. He was born without arms, without legs. And you can imagine that if someone is born like that, a severe disability, no arms, so how to work, how to write, how to function without hands, without arms, and without legs, how can one move and walk and compete with others? The only thing I saw from the film, that only one big toe in the end of his foot was there, which helped him with doing many things. If you go to YouTube and search for Nick Vujicic, you see how the achievements there. But the title is very, very important. No arms, no legs, no worries. Which means that no despair, not to give up hope. And that is not only for disabled, it is a lesson for every person in Islam. This is first thing, first angle that we are talking about, that when someone has disability, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will compensate them with something else to cope and to do their work, to achieve the highest possible ways. The second point, brothers and sisters, that we read in the list of major sins. We know, according to the Holy Quran, there are sins that are classified to be major and some which are less. Al-kaba'ir and al-saghair. And when you talk, for example, in any book of fatwa regarding the mujtahid whom you want to follow in taqleed, he must be adil, and by adala, they define him to stick to all the rulings of Sharia and avoid all the prohibited acts, the major sins. So, for example, if you refer to Minhaj al-Salihin of Marhum Ayatollah Sayyid Muhsin al-Hakim, then Ayatollah Sayyid Abu Qasim al-Khoi, and now according to Ayatollah Sistani and many others, in the first volume of Minhaj al-Salihin, there is a list of 52 prohibited acts are calling and falling under the title of Al-Kaba'ir, the major sins. The technical term is from the Quran. In tajtanibu kaba'ira ma tunhawna anhu, and that is the title for the major sins. All right? One of the major sins mentioned on that list is to have despair, to lose hope, to think that's it. Since I am afflicted with disability, I have this, so all clothes of progress and achievement are closed in my face. This is wrong. And if you see in the Quran, Al-Ya'su min rawhillah, this is the title of Al-Kaba'ir, which we call it despair. So, don't lose hope at all. And by this, of course, you can achieve many, many things. Remember, and this is for those brothers and sisters who are working with Amanati, and to raise awareness in the community regarding disability or disabilities regarding the Muslim communities, okay, that we have to know that if you have willpower, if you think that still you can do it, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you. Tawfiq is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we need the combination of both, tawfiq and your hard work. Imam Ridha alayhi salam, by the way, about whose birth anniversary we are celebrating today, 11th of Dhul Qa'dah, he says, Man sa'ala Allah at-tawfiq wa lam yajtahid faqad istahza'a bi nafsih. Those who ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them ability and tawfiq without making a real and hard work and effort, they are fooling on themselves. They are doing something illogical and present themselves to other people to be fools. So this is what we knew, a combination of both we needed. You have willpower, you work very hard, you do whatever you can, you try to find the whatever possible ways to achieve your goals, but at the same time, you can't be independent from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help. Why? Because in every daily prayer, you say what? بِحَوْلِ اللَّهِ وَقُوَّتِهِ أَقُومُ وَأَقْعُدُ. So although in every prayer, you stand up, you sit down, go for prostration, ruku', but all these activities, don't think that you are doing it. So if the normal activity of walking, standing, sitting is not possible according to Quranic theology without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assistance, so that's why we say بِحَوْلِ اللَّهِ وَقُوَّتِهِ أَقُومُ وَأَقْعُدُ. So this is my second point, to discuss it in very, concise talk to you. And the third one is one of the most important principles in Islam regarding how to treat other fellow members of the society. And that is to work very hard to assist others, to care for others. And in this respect, we see that Imam Ali alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha tells us, من كفارات الذنوب العظام إغاثة الملهوف وكشف الكرب عن المكروبين. Remember it. من كفارات الذنوب العظام. Part of the expiations of great and major sins. Because you know that anyone who is, we are not infallible, we are all fallible. So, when we commit sin, either by mistake or whatever led to that, all right, we have to expiate. We have to pick up kafara for it. We have to make it good. Yes? And Imam Ali alayhi salam tells us one of the, or on the top list of the expiations for major sins is إغاثة الملهوف وكشف الكرب عن المكروبين. To assist the needy, to remove the difficulties and calamities from who are affected by something nasty, something very, very bad that affects their life. So, to summarize the whole theme of this gathering, and I'm sure that, mashallah, all other speakers will contribute to enriching this idea, and at the same time, I invite everybody to help and to cooperate with this organization of Amanati. And by that, we do two things: obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and satisfy ourselves that how we care for others. And this caring for others goes to that level that our Imams alayhi salam taught us. وَيُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ. Ithar means to put the needs of others prior to your own needs. And that is what we see it in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Lady Fatima al-Zahra, Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, and the Imams. And we should learn with them, learn from them. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. We thank Ayatollah and Dr. Sayyid Al-Milani for that excellent speech. A very important point, first of all, is if Allah takes one thing from us, this is a life lesson whether someone has a disability or not. If Allah takes one thing from us, He will compensate with something else, inshallah. And a final message, do not despair. And one important factor that everyone with a disability may sometimes feel, I believe, that religion can often provide a comfort for those with a disability and those who have a child with disability, because when we read the hadith, when we read our history, when we read our textbooks, we see that Allah truly does compensate in this world and the hereafter. And these children with a disability, these children that we see and that become adults, they will become the gateway for many of these parents. All their struggles, all their late nights, they will become the gateway to heaven for their parents. So the next speaker of tonight is the lecturer, and he really does need no introduction. His lectures, especially his Ramadan series, really did capture the community. I was getting forwards left, right and center during the holy month of Ramadan. He has studied and taught in Hawza for almost a decade. Sheikh Muhammad Jawad Shumali has completed a master's and PhD at the University of Cambridge in Middle Eastern Studies. He is currently studying psychotherapy at the University of Cambridge. He has co-authored a book on hadiths called Revival of the Heart. Now today, inshallah, he will be giving the lecture of tonight about the importance of inclusion and accessibility in Islam and the spiritual understanding of disability. So please do welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope you are all well, and before starting I would like to thank the organizers, everyone involved, the amazing Amanati group for the incredible work that they're doing. When sister called me and said there's going to be such an event, and I was like, I'm up for it. This cause is so important for me, it's so close to my heart, and I just wanted to be here to learn from everyone, to support the cause, and the talk is just an excuse for me to be here, and because I think this may be the most important event of my life. This is so important for me, and yes. It's interesting, I put the story on for Amanati because I was struggling for a while when I was just reading the English before. What is it? Amanati? And then one of my friends messaged and said, is this the Muslim Illuminati? And I said, no, it's Amanati. And I acted like I've been knowing from the first. I said, no, it's Amanati, from Amana, trust. And it's actually such a beautiful word that captures a lot of what this movement is all about. So anyway, I'm very glad to be part of today's event, and on such a beautiful day as well, the Wilada of Imam Ridha alayhi salam. So I've been thinking a lot about actually what to talk about, because as I said, I came mainly to listen, to learn, but I have to speak anyway. It's one of those challenges. So I was like, what can I say that would be beneficial? So the past few weeks I've been very focused on Dua Arafah of Imam Hussein, and it clicked on me that maybe there's an element from there that we could speak about today, and I think it's very important. Imam Hussein in Dua Arafah, one of the beautiful things he does, and it's been very useful for myself in being able to understand life better, and as a result of it, navigate it better, is one of the things Imam Hussein does is that he says, see, most of the problems, most of the difficulties we face in life, especially in the way we react to life, is due to our sometimes wrong understanding of what is happening around us. One of the beautiful things Imam Hussein does in Dua Arafah is he says, see, in order to understand your life, in order for life to make sense, in order for your questions about life, its challenges to be answered, you need to know the context. Your life is a story. Right now, you're in one of the chapters of the story of your life, and if you don't know what is the setting of the story, you're going to have so many questions, so many things will not make sense. So one of the things he does in Dua Arafah is he's trying to give us a context of this thing we call life, because if you think about it, we're just thrown into life, right? It's not like anyone gave us a meeting before we were born, right? That, okay, salam alaikum, you're going to be born, I don't know, the year is 1991 in my case, and the world is in such situation, this is your family, I don't know, maybe this is what you have to be careful, your brother, for example, is like this, and no one gives you that meeting before you're born. No, you just find yourself in life, in a family, and slowly you think that's all there is. Every family is like that till you grow up a little bit, you go to school, or maybe you see other friends and like, oh, that could be in a different way, or oh, not everyone's sister is like that, or oh, not everyone is the way I am. And it's like you slowly go on and you don't know what's happening, and then suddenly you find yourself in pain, or there's a challenge and you're like, why is this happening to me? So Imam Hussein ibn Arafah says, see, if you don't know why you're here, what is this story, you're going to be confused. And that confusion is going to really create so many problems for you. So today I thought maybe that's what we can do. Let's talk a little bit about what is this thing that we're doing, we call it life. I know we're here for however years, it could be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. What is the story here? What are we doing? Why are we different? Why some of us are like this, some of us are like that? Why are we born in a certain time? Why are we born in a certain family? Is there any reason for it? Is it all random? Imam Hussein says, see, from before you came to this world, yani thousands of years before you were born, God had a plan for you, every single one of us. It's not like it was an accident that we were born. Even if our parents, for them it was an accident, but it was part of God's plan for that accident to take place and we came to this world. Imam Hussein says, mate, my friend, many years before you were born, God had a plan of when you should come to this world so that you can shine the most. He says, from generation to generations, empires came and went, rulers came and went, societies came, different societies were formed, cultures came and... But God kept us, every single one of us, from one generation to another generation till the right time for us to come and shine. For every single person, Imam Hussein says, the family they're born into, the year they're born in, the country they're born in, all of this comes with a plan. And that plan is out of God's love. Every person, according to Imam Hussein, is a character in a story written by the most beautiful storyteller of the world, and that is God. And every person comes at the world with whatever they need to become the hero of their story. And one of the things that Imam Hussein reminds us is that there are different stories. There are different ways of being a hero of your own story. Not all heroes do the same thing. Not all heroes have the same starting points. Not all stories need to look the same. In fact, we like it that stories are different. Imagine if all the movies we watch were the same movie, how boring would that be? No, Imam says every person is part of a story. They are the hero of it, and they are given all they need to be able to shine in that story. Now, if they don't know what their story is, they may feel like they lack what they need to get there. But that only shows that maybe we have forgotten about our own story. What is my story? What am I here to achieve? Unfortunately, one of the things which has happened, and I feel like religion had come to help us with this, but we really let it down, is that religion for us has become a kind of an appearance that we say and do, but the core of it, the part of it that was meant to change the way we experience the world, change the way we understand the world, that part of it we have lost. Religion is not something that you just say, you just do. Religion, if done right, has to change the way we look at the world, has to change the way we see other people, has to change the way we see ourselves, and has to correct our understanding of ourselves and other people. Unfortunately, right now we are living in a culture in which we have forgotten, as a society, Muslims and non-Muslims, religious people and non-religious people, that we are not these bodies. We are souls created by a loving God, and the bodies we are given are gifts we use in this world in order to fulfill our story. Every soul gets the body they need for their story. But unfortunately, now we're living in a world, a culture in which whether you're Muslim or not, you've forgotten you're a soul. People look at themselves and the people around them as bodies. Oh, that person is taller, must be better than me. That person is like that, must be better than me. And we have all almost kind of forgotten who we are. This is not limited to any group of people, no. It has happened to most of us. When we want to get married, what are the qualities people are looking for? Oh, the body has to be like that. The body has to be that way. But is marriage a relationship of two bodies or a relationship of two souls? Is our experience here, our life, that we're just a body, or no? Our soul has come here to learn things, to experience certain things, to grow, and the body is only the vehicle that it uses in these however years that we are here for. One day this body, however shape it is, we're going to leave it, thank God for it, and move on to the next part of our journey. But we are so focused, we have so much forgotten, that we have kind of really believed that this is the body. And even sometimes when, this shows itself in almost everything. I mean, our self-worth gets linked to our body, even though Quran says, mate, your body is not you, that's me, that's my gift to you. I don't know, the way we look at people and we try to see if they're successful in life or not, we judge that, for example, what kind of physical things they have, what does their body look like. Well, it's so interesting. One of the things, for example, Imam Hussein does in Dua Arafah, and then all of our Imams tried to do, was to tell people, if you think you're the body, if you think this world is all there is, you won't understand your life. You're going to make so many judgment mistakes. Masalan, Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, it's so interesting. Imam Hussein says about Ashura that I won. I wasn't defeated. How is that possible? All of your companions got killed in that way. Your body was harmed in such ways. How is that a victory? He says, you think I'm a body? Yes, if you think I'm a body, Ashura is a defeat. Ashura is a loss, because they destroyed my body. But he says, I won. Why did I win? Because he says, my soul showed what human soul is capable of. He says, they were throwing stones at us, they were throwing spears at us, they were harming us in all sorts of ways. We never did anything wrong to them. In the heat of the battle, he says, when my daughter needed me and my little daughter came to me, I didn't tell her, can't you see dad is busy? Can't you see it's a war? He said, no. I got down from my horse and I told my daughter, what is it, the light of my eye? What is it, sweetie? How can I help you? He says, this is the victory of humanity. That a soul can show, no matter what circumstance I find myself in, I will try to act beautiful. Throw stones at me, beauty will come out of me. This is the victory of humanity. Our soul, for our soul to show, no matter what situation you put into me, I will still be beautiful. It's very interesting. When we were to be created by God, angels didn't want us to come in this world. Angels told God, why are you creating insan? We praise you, we glorify you. What's the need for this thing you're creating, insan? God told them, this insan can do things that you guys are not aware of. This insan is special. That's us. Every single one of us. God had so much love and respect for insan that he went against the angels and created us. And when he created us, he congratulated himself. That's not because of what our bodies can do. That's because what our soul can do, what our soul is here to show. And for every soul to manifest that beauty, they are given exactly the condition they need to be able to show that. For the beauty of Imam Hussein's soul to come out, he had to be in Ashura. For us to know how beautiful the soul of Lady Zainab is, she had to be in Ashura. Without Ashura, how could we know how beautiful Abbas is? How could you see without Siffin how loving Imam Ali is? That his enemies deprive him of water, but when his group gets access to water, he says, no, we're going to give it to them. My soul cannot deprive any other soul from water. That situation was needed for the beauty of Imam Ali to come out. So God says, guys, you're understanding the whole thing differently. You're looking at life, at success in life, at the victory of insan differently. It's not about what appears on the surface. It's about what the soul gets to show. Insan is the representation, the mirror that's meant to show God on earth. It's such a huge and beautiful thing. And it says for you to be able to show that, to show how strong insan can be, to show how patient insan can be, to show how loving insan can be, you have to go through a story, because that story will give you an opportunity to show that. And this is why it's so interesting. All of our prophets have gone through the most difficult lives. Our own prophet says there was no one that had more difficulty than me. Because in order to show the most amount of light, you have to be in the most difficult situation. If we don't understand this, if we don't know why we're here for, if we forget that we are souls, if we forget that we came to this world to show the greatness that God has put inside us, we look at the world, we look at other people, and we don't know how to understand things. Even with good intentions, we make wrong mistakes. Any person who would, for example, look at a person with any challenge, Allah, be it a physical disability or another disability, and feels pity, at that very moment, it shows that even if it's a good intention, the spirit of Islam has not come inside them. Because what are you pitying? What are you pitying? There is nothing there to pity. That shows that we've got the story wrong. In fact, there is a beautiful hadith. I don't want to keep reading you hadith because I thought like maybe it would be a little bit dry to read the Arabic, etc. There's a hadith in which God says actually people with disability are the masterpiece of humanity. Allah, unfortunately, in this world, we're so forgotten. Maybe we only see the surface of this world. Masalan, we don't know what is happening at its depth. I'll give you a few examples to make that clear. We look at something and say, oh, that's bad, that's fulan. Prophet says, guys, one day your eyes will open up and you see that the world was actually very different to the way you saw it. You were pitying this person. All the angels in the sky were respecting, were celebrating, were praising him. Please recite salawat. I'm trying to see where to go next because there's so much to say about this topic, but I don't want to also bore you, and I'm so excited to hear to the other parts of the program. So let me just recap and maybe one last point at the end. Imam Hussein is telling us, guys, so long as you don't see the context of your life, you won't be able to understand it. You're not a physical body. That body is a gift. What you are is a soul. And that soul is created out of love, and the condition it has come in is exactly the condition it needed to become the hero of its story. And one day you will be shown that story and you will be happy about it. Right now, because you are not seeing what is happening, it may not make sense. And this is why, let me go there, this is why in some of the ahadith, the Ahl Bayt try to change the way we look at the world. Let me give you 3 of these hadiths. 1, the Prophet says, see, there is 2 ways of understanding yourself, either as a body or as a soul. For the body to grow, you eat. For the soul to grow, you have to feed others. What is he trying to show us? There's 2 ways of understanding this world. You're not the body. You're a soul. You're something else. And the way your soul grows, the success of your soul, the happiness of your soul is different to what you would consider for your body. You cannot understand your success in life, your worth, by looking at your body. He says, Asan, they work in different ways. For your body to grow, you have to eat yourself. For your soul to grow, you have to feed others. Another hadith. اعلموا أن حوائج الناس إليكم من نعم الله عليكم. This is by Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam is saying, guys, again you could go wrong with understanding this world. Now, when we think we're just a body here to live certain life, 50 years, 60 years, that's it. We forget we have an eternal journey. We forget this is only the beginning of our life. He says, if you look at life that way, when someone has a need in you, when someone needs you, when someone comes to help for you, you feel like it's a burden. And obviously it is if you think this world is all there is. If you think your body have 50 years to achieve something, and achievement is just a physical gain, well, obviously if you need to help someone, that's a burden. That's a waste of life. But Imam says, see, again you made a mistake. That's not how it works. It's not these 50 years. Success is not what you call success. When these people come to you for your help, or when they need you, that's actually a blessing for you. Your soul is gaining something out of it. Your soul gets an opportunity to show what insan can do, to show how loving insan can be. That is a blessing for you. So see, in almost every hadith, the Ahl Bayt are trying to go inside our head and change the way we look at the world. Another one, I think this one was by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam says, do you want to know who has the best life? Ahsan al-aish, the best life. Man hasuna aisha nas fi aishah. Man hasuna aisha nas fi aishah. He says, do you want me to know what is success in this world? And this is who is saying this to us, Imam Ali. And if we know there's one person in this world who actually did the whole human game well and won the game, succeeded, it's Imam Ali. And he says, do you want to know what is success in this life? What is the best life? Man hasuna aisha nas fi aishah, the one whose life makes the life of other people better. Again, a paradigm shift in the way we look at the world. If you think you're a body here for 60 years, hope alone if you have to take care of someone, if you have to do, hope that you're falling behind here. Although whether you're a parent or a sibling or a friend, alone all of other parents, all of other people are going ahead with their life, succeeding, doing this, I'm falling behind, I'm doing this, I'm taking care of someone at home. Imam says, Baba, you got it wrong again now. You've come here for your soul to grow, for your soul to become beautiful. You're not behind. The best life, man hasuna aisha nas fi aishah. The best life is the life that makes the life of other people better, makes the life of other people easier. And because today is the birth anniversary of Imam Ridha, I thought I'll read the hadith from Imam Ridha alayhi salam. Imam Ridha alayhi salam says, whoever, and I'm saying, and I'll slowly at the end trying to make this a little bit about the community as well, because part of this is individual. He says, whoever tries to make life a little bit easier for another person, Yawm al-Qiyamah, God will give their soul so much. It doesn't mean that alone you have to do something and then after you die you have to wait for Qiyamah and to get the benefit. No. Asan in Islam, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you know what it is? The reason why Asan Qiyamah, the hereafter, was called Yawm, day, it's because that is the time when the truths of this world become clear. That's why they call it day. And if you look at the Quran, every time it refers to this world, it's Layl, night. Every time you speak about the hereafter, it's Yom, daytime. Why is that? Because at night, there are so many things you can't see. Imagine you go out, it's dark, you may bump into something, someone you really love may be next to you, you don't see them. So many good things may be happening around you, but during the day, truth becomes clear. Imam says, baby, in this world right now, it's like night time. You may have so much blessings you can't see it. You may think it's difficult, it's bad. People come to you for your help, you get tired. And no judgment, because we can't see. The reason Yawm al-Qiyamah is called Yawm, daytime, because that's when you start realizing, oh my God, that difficulty I went through, that's what that was for? That's the love in that? That person that I managed to help, wow! What happened to my soul? Look how much my soul grew. Look how beautiful that sacrifice was. Yawm al-Qiyamah. It's not that alone you do something 40 years later it shows. No, 40 years later you find out. 40 years later you find out how every person that you helped was a treasure for you. You thought you're helping them, they were helping you. If you think you're the body, hope you're helping that body. But Allah, who said we're bodies? Yawm al-Qiyamah, God will show us all of this. They were the treasures for you. There's a few hadiths about parents who take care of children with difficulty and says on the day of judgment they will see that that child for them was a garden more beautiful than heaven. Heaven with all of its glory is smaller than your child with a disability. That's how beautiful that soul is. The reason we can't see that right now is that this world is dark. The truths are unclear in this world. One day we will see that. And of course, this is not to undermine at all the challenges that are there. I'm not trying to say, oh, everything is easy and flowery and there are no days in which you want to punch the wall or, I don't know, like shout or be mad at God, and all of that is okay. All of that is part of the journey. All of that is part of the journey for our soul to slowly expand. Challenges are the birthplace of your beauty. I have spoken to many parents recently who've been going through either they've had a disability themselves or they had a child with a disability. And I'm not here to say, oh, it's such an easy thing, paint a rosy picture. No, it's very difficult. So many difficult days, so many days in which you feel lonely, so many days in which even your friends don't get you, so many days in which people judge you, so many days in which so many difficult things happen. Obviously, all of that is there. But one of the interesting things you see is that they say, if someone told me, for example, 10 years ago that I would be living this life and actually handling it, I would say that's impossible. But somehow now it seems like I'm doing it. How? And this is the point which I think it's the most important thing for us to realize. We don't know who we are. And we don't know how much greater we can be. Every time we face a challenge and we feel it's bigger than us, it's because we don't know how big we are. That challenge comes to us to remind you. The challenge literally pulls the sides of your soul and stretches it to remind you how great you are. You've just forgotten it. And this process is not easy. This process of expansion of the chest or the soul, it's not easy. But how else would we realize how great we are? There's so many hadiths that says when things become clear, anytime it says Yawm al-Qiyamah, just translate it to this: when things become clear. Otherwise, even right now, it's like that. When people see on that day, when things become clear, oh wow, what was the purpose of this thing I was going through? That moment I was on the floor punching the carpet, be like, this is tough. What was happening at that moment? My body obviously can't take it. But in that difficult moment, what's happening to my soul, the actual person that I am? When you get a replay of that and you see, wow, look at that growth, look at that beauty. Look how beautiful my soul is. Then you say, oh wow, I wish I had more of that. But right now to say that, it's like really difficult. But one day we all say that. And I can't wait to see all of you on that day. Having said all of that, I want to move a little bit in the 5 minutes that I have left. I said I'm here to learn. I'm talking so long. No, this is what happens when you give a sheikh a time and a microphone and water. Just doesn't stop talking. But one of the things I thought it's very important for us to mention, and I want to say I'm up for it. From this point onwards, wherever events there are on this course, count me in. I'll do whatever I can. Is we really need to, and bless the Amanati group for starting this. I have so much respect for them. We need to push this to next level. All of us, we have to come support. All of us, we have to come help. Because to come and read Quran doesn't make a community religious. To come and do, masalan, read du'as, no, that doesn't make a community religious. All of that is there to create a change in us so that we can treat others better. When we treat others better, that is a religious community. Hala masalan inshallah in few weeks I'm going to speak about dua kumel. And what is the function of dua kumel? One of the functions of dua kumel, you know what it is? It's such a beautiful thing. Dua kumel is that point in which you want to show love to others. It's difficult. Masalan, you want in a situation to be able to be there more for someone. Or masalan, you want to handle a situation with more patience, you can't. That's dua kumel. You go to God and say, God, I couldn't handle it. I wanted to be more loving, I couldn't. I wanted to be more patient, I couldn't. Give me more. Give me more love. Give me more patience. That's literally dua kumel. Dua kumel is you go to God and complain to God, Alan, I don't feel big enough to handle this situation. Stretch me. Give me more love. Give me more patience. Give me more courage. So, if we read dua kumel for 20 years and forget this is the purpose, at the end of it we're the same people, we don't show more love, we're not there for others, that dua kumel has not made us spiritual. But if we go there to get love and energy so that we come back and share that love with others, that is the spiritual community. So I truly believe that as long as there are people among us who find it difficult to come to centers, who find that the Sunday can't, it's not accessible, they're not welcome, they would be judged, we are not a spiritual community yet. We are not a religious community yet. Imam Ridha, whose birth anniversary is today, he says, if you manage to show a community of what real Shias are, everyone would love that. And obviously, why? Because real Shias are the one who don't wait for others to say we need help, or don't wait for others to say, oh, we can't come. They go and say, how can we make it accessible to you? It's so interesting. I was looking at the ahadith. The Prophet They didn't ask the people themselves to come and say, make it accessible for us. He said, no, it's the responsibility of the community to do that. It's the responsibility of us and go, how can we make it better? And I really think as long as we haven't achieved this one goal, we can't call ourselves a religious community. We're trying to be a religious community. In my understanding, and inshallah maybe in the future we'll talk about it, all of religion can be summarized in 2 sentences. And Dr. Haydarpur in her book, Islamic Spirituality, has spoken about this. I truly believe all of religion and spirituality of Ahl Bayt can be summarized in 2. Going to God to get love, coming back to share it. Because you want to go out there, give love to people, make it nicer, you're going to face challenges. You go back to God, say, God, strengthen me more, give me courage, give me better ideas, fill my heart, and you go back and you give more. This process of going to God, getting love and giving it back to people, this is what all Islam is, in my understanding. And so if a community wants to become a spiritual community, this is what we should do. Everything we do is so that we get more love and share it. And let's do that. And bless the Amanati group who started this, who is helping us become better people. And I hope, inshallah, in whatever way we can, we support them. From now on, I'm telling you, whatever you need, and this, and I'm always there for you. And I hope everyone else feels the same. And I hope, inshallah, together we change the community. And we don't allow even for one person to find it difficult to come because there's a situation that they feel like they're not understood or they would be judged. And together we can make that happen. I don't want to die and that has not happened yet. So let's make a pledge today that from today onwards we'll make active efforts, inshallah, in doing this. And those of you who have more experience with this, come and educate us. Tell us how we can do that. And can't wait to listen to the rest of the speakers. Thank you so much for listening to me. And remember, in Surah Al-Rahman, the Prophet says, guys, the Prophet gave us a good news on Surah Al-Rahman, and he said, I've reached a height, and from that height I look at the world and everything there is. You know, and from here, we can only see certain things. If we go on top of a building, we can see more. The Prophet says, I reached such a height and I looked at the whole world, all of people with all their stories and everything that happens, and I saw that it was nothing other than love. This life happened out of God's love. And I hope, inshallah, we help everyone feel that. For many people to feel that love of God, we need not to block the love that God wants to show them through us. So, let's end with the salawat.
And became disabled. Many people who are not born with this disability grow old and then are disabled, unable to walk. So it's very important, I believe, and it's a very important point that Sheikh Muhammad Jawad Shamali mentioned, is that not to put too much emphasis on the physical. We do judge about the physical. The whole world has become physical. Social media has been all about the body, about the physical. But we need to, as individuals, focus more on the soul, the spiritual soul, what's inside us. And I believe that is a very, very important point. Another thing is a very important point that he mentioned is about pity. And many people with a disability or have a child with a disability have a sense of, they could call it shaming, coming out and saying they have a disabled child because of the pity people have. people with a disability or people with a child with disability do not need someone's pity and do not need someone's, in a sense, to feel pity upon them. They just need understanding and acceptance. That's it. So when we have that understanding, when we have that awareness, then we can go and move forward, inshallah, and go forward. And lastly, talking about the hereafter, and I think that was a very important point, is because sometimes when we look at those with a disability, we only look at this world, and our perspective is limited to this world. We don't see what happens after. Many people with a disability or have a child with disability, the struggles they go through, on the Day of Judgment, they will be absolutely astonished with the level of blessings, the level of reward that Allah will give them. Even those that have an illness. I mean, I've read several hadith which says that the Imams and the Prophet said that those with the illness or develop an illness and are patient over that illness, they say that on the Day of Judgment they will wish they were ill their entire life because of the reward that they will get. So a very important point, number one, it's not all about the physical, it's not all about what we see. Let's focus on the soul. And number two is to look beyond this world and widen our perspective. Now, next we have a very, very important speaker. We've seen him in many, many platforms, many huge platforms. We've watched, if you just search his name online, you will see many of the amazing work that he has done. Brother Naqfi Rizvi is an engineer by qualification, a financial services professional by profession, and a sportsman by passion. He is incredibly passionate about disability inclusion. His topic today is a world of difference and diversity is a beautiful world. So please do welcome him with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, elders, scholars, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm so honored to be in such a brilliant gathering, and I would firstly like to thank Amanati for inviting me and for putting on this program, because I think it's so important, as has already been highlighted. So before I start, I want to ask you a question, and I don't want an answer said aloud. Just think it to yourself and be honest. Think about your unfiltered thoughts. When you saw me come here on stage, taking someone's arm, what one of your first thoughts? Was it, oh, poor guy, he needs someone's arm to get on stage? Or was it, oh, bless him, he can't see? Or was it, oh my God, that guy's cool? If it was the third, you're fine, but if it was the first two, maybe not. And again, as Sheikh Shumani mentioned very eloquently and articulately, it's not because we're at fault, it's more because of the context, the environment, the exposure that we've had, which has been so limited, which has always made disability or difference appear in a negative light, rather than being something beautiful that we need to cherish, that we need to enhance, that we need to make better. Because as we already heard, if it were all the same, if all the movies were the same, what would be nice in this world? Not very much. So before I tell you a little bit about myself, I just want to make sure you guys are all awake, because I can't see if you are. So I do want some answers shouted out, if that's all right, just for some stats. So what do people think? How many disabled people do we have around the world? Any answers? What's that? A few million, okay. Okay. One more? Come on, guys, there's no prizes, that's fine. Okay, so that is probably, yes, it's just over 1 billion people. About 15% of the world's population has some form of a disability. That is absolutely huge. But more importantly, that comes with a huge opportunity as well. So for those of you who are dying to give an answer but didn't get a chance, here's a second question. So the purple pound, which you may have come across, is the spending power of disabled people and their families. Just for the UK, how big do we think that is, the value of the purple pound? Any answers? Any guesses? Come on, you can be brave. No, so it's just the absolute value of, so basically the spending power of disabled households, essentially. I would guess so, yeah. No, I'll give you the answer, guys, to keep to time. It's 249 billion pounds. That is a lot of money and a lot of lost potential. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So I was born to an incredible Indian mother and Pakistani father. So you can already see the problem. I was born with an eye condition called congenital glaucoma, which is a genetic condition, and I was born with very limited sight, which gradually kept on reducing, and by the age of 7, I had lost my sight completely. But I still have incredible parents who always believed that disability is not the same as inability. My mum was incredibly keen to get me into a regular school with sighted girls and boys, so I too could have those same opportunities. And yes, things were difficult, being the only blind student in that school. Yes, things were really hard when I couldn't see what was on the board. Yes, things were really hard when I couldn't solve maths equations as easily as someone else could. But we persevered. We took on that challenge, and it really opened up so many windows and so many eyes, not just for our teachers, but loads of people around us. And that really gave me the confidence to think about following my dreams and what I'm passionate about. And that's what really led me to do my undergrad and master's degrees in engineering, because loads of people say, you can't do engineering, you can't even see what a laboratory experiment is all about. But it's really about carving those paths that can really show you how can you make the impossible possible. And I won't take credit for this because it absolutely wasn't me. It was the support of Allah and the incredible love and the support that I had from my friends, from my parents and my teachers that all made it possible. And I hope that I can inspire other people to follow their dreams as well, because there's too many people who tell us you can't do this, and very, very few people who stand by us and say, I will be with you no matter what. But there's other interests that I like outside of education and work as well. I absolutely, as you would have heard in the introduction, absolutely love sports. And, I've done everything from like 100 meters to last year running the London Marathon in a time that I was really happy with, doing Ride London, but more importantly, blind tennis being one of my favorite sports, and alhamdulillah, getting an opportunity to play in the World Championships in 2019, which is when they last happened. And I'm not saying any of this to brag or to show off, but to tell you that just because someone has a disability doesn't mean they can't do things, doesn't mean they don't have dreams, doesn't mean they don't have passions. Yes, I am blind. Yes, I'm proud of it, and it's an important part of who I am, but it doesn't define me. That's not the only thing that you associate or should be associating with me. And that's what brings me to the social model of disability. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this, but what we often hear get badged around is a medical model of disability. Oh, this person has autism, or this person's on a wheelchair, or this person's blind, or this person's deaf. And yes, that's all correct, but what's really important is the environment. And what the social model of disability actually says is the environment that disables a person, not their physical condition. So let me give you an example. If you think about a building that only has stairs, a person with a wheelchair probably can't get very far. But if a building had ramps, they probably can. The person's medical disability hasn't changed, but what has changed is the environment which has enabled them to access that building. Similarly, if you have a situation where perhaps someone can't hear, the hearing itself won't change, but having something like live captioning, like British Sign Language, will enable them to be part of that conversation. And that's what we need to think about. We can't change what Allah has given us when we're born or acquire later in life. What we can change is the environment. What we can change is how we respond to that. And that brings me to my next point around inclusive design. Back in the day, there were a few people who perhaps were quite keen on thinking, how can we make specialist technology for people who have a disability or who have a certain condition? And I think that was great. But the trouble with a lot of that is, you can't really bucket lots of disabled people into a small group because they are very niche and we like to be a little bit fussy. But also because it's not such a big market, they tend to be really expensive. And now we're moving to this amazing concept of inclusive design, where you design for everybody, regardless. Where you design for the extremes so that everyone in the middle falls in. And you might be wondering, why would I waste my time doing that? But think about how much economic and practical sense that makes. So again, let's take an example. Text messages may have been started to help the deaf community. But who in this room honestly does not use text? We all do, because sometimes, it's like if you're bored with my talk and want to text someone, you'd rather do that than speak to them on the phone, because that would just be outright rude. So some of those things can really help us, not just the specific groups that they are meant for. But more importantly, I, for example, have a permanent disability. Someone might, let's say in a sporting accident, might break their arm and might be in a cast for 6 months or so. That's a temporary disability. But I can guarantee you every single person in this room has been in what I would call a situational disability. Maybe you were pushing a pushchair and only had one hand that you could use. Maybe you were standing under the sun and the light was too bright. Designing for everybody makes sure that you take care of all of this, the normal situations, the permanent disabilities, and the situational ones which every one of us faces. So the next time you're thinking about a problem, try to think about it in a more all-encompassing way and what you can do to help everybody. Unfortunately, our centers and our institutions and our community aren't at a stage where we can really feel proud of welcoming people with difference. But there are some incredible examples that you can see. And one that rings to mind is Stanmore, and I think they did a really good job in Muharram when they provided BSL interpreters for some of the deaf community. And I was like, this is absolutely brilliant, because then they can be part of the regular programs as well. But then when we think about communication as well, how many times you have incredible artists and people and creators in our community who design amazing posters, and I love that. I think we definitely need more of that. But do we ever think about maybe having captions to those photographs, so people like myself, when they receive that on their phone, have a means to follow what's actually being said in the photo? And I want to just give credit to Sister Zahra for that, because when she was sending me information and when she has communicated with me in the past and sent pictures, from what I can recall, it's always come with a description, always come with what that picture is about, so that I can understand what's in there. So when we think about posters, yes, let's make them fancy and really pretty, but also let's think about things like alternate text. Let's think about how can you make others feel included as well. And I want to briefly touch on terminology, because that I feel is a really important thing, especially now in the world in which we live, where political correctness is so important and we don't want to be wrong, we don't want to offend anyone, and we're like, can I say this? Well, let's get the record straight here. I love to say to people when I meet them, lovely to see you, and they're like, what, but you can't see me. It's like, yeah, it's a way of saying. So if you tell me, and think about the situation, if you say, Naqi, did you watch the match last night? Sorry, did you hear the match last night? What that's done is, it's automatically made me feel like you are a lot more aware of my disability, and I'm making a point out of it. Using language like, did you see the match? Have you read that book? Is normal terminology that we'd use even with a friend that we're speaking to on the phone. That just because we can't see them or they can't see us doesn't mean we change the way in which we talk. And unfortunately, sometimes in our community, I feel we tend to think that we know it all. I can tell you so many examples here where I've gone to a center and gone for salah, and one of the first questions I can ask is, do you like a chair? Like, I'm not sure what connection not being able to see has to being able to sit on the floor, unless I'm missing a very important point, which I would really appreciate if someone can help me understand. And you might not always know, and you don't need to know what's the best way to approach someone, because we can't be experts when it comes to all sorts of difference and diversity, which again is beautiful. If there's one thing that you take away from this, it is to say, what can I do to help, or how can I help you? Because then you're not assuming anything, and you're giving control to that person so that they can determine what's the best way to help them out, because all of us need help in different ways. Us assuming isn't going to be the answer. The other thing which we often find, particularly in the older generation, hopefully inshallah it's going to get better with the younger ones, is things around marriage. And this has nothing to do with disability. Obviously that's one part of it. But we tend to get so fixated, as the Shaykh was beautifully articulating earlier, on those physical, tangible features about how wealthy a person is, how successful they are, how they look, rather than what their soul's made of. Why is it so difficult in our community for people who have a disability, or who are different, or who aren't that well off, to do something which is literally half of our faith? I want you to think about it, and I know it's not easy answers. It's not something that we're going to resolve tonight. But the first step is to acknowledge the problem, and then to start thinking about it as well. I just want to end with something which for me has been one of the most beautiful quotes, because what we all can do now is to think about how we can appreciate and love diversity and difference, how we can welcome anyone and everyone, how we can become more knowledgeable, more involved, because everyone should feel a part of this amazing community, not just a few who are the quote-unquote normal. I'm not very good with my hadith and stuff, so forgive me, but I will paraphrase. But I'm sure everyone's heard of this very famous hadith. Why do you consider yourself to be insignificant when within you is the entire universe? And that applies to absolutely all of us. We might think of ourselves as not so great, but we all absolutely are. The only difference is we haven't found our potential yet. And we can't do it alone. We need everyone else to be on the journey with us. And I hope that today, before you sleep, you will make that pledge to yourself to think differently, to change your glasses, and to think about how you can see the world slightly differently. We don't want to leave it too late. We don't want to ostracize or alienate people from our community who can add so much value. So once again, thank you for being an incredible audience, and thank you, Amanati, for putting up something which I think is so important, and I'm glad we're all having a conversation about this. So may Allah bless you all, and thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. I think we will all agree that that was very eye-opening, very inspirational, mashallah, and very, very well said. Just a few points that I want to emphasize upon is that the environment, when we create the right environment, everyone will flourish. And that is a question that we must all ask ourselves. Is our centers the right environment? Have we enabled easy accessibility to our centers? Can they access, those with a disability, can they access the mosque easily? In the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, there was an individual who was blind, who could not see, and the Prophet tied a rope to the masjid and to his house. So every time this individual wanted to come to the masjid, he would just take the rope and he would pull it, and he was able to get to the masjid. And we must ask ourselves, are we enabling, is there easy access to our mosques? Another point I wanted to mention is that often when we discuss disability within our community, and I've been to a few lectures on disability, we often focus on disability within children, special needs children, disability within children, but we forget that these children are going to become adults. There are adults in our community with a disability, with a childhood disability, but where are they? There's adults in our community with autism. Where are they? There's adults in our community with Down syndrome. Where are they? Are we, for example, creating a side majlis which enables them to come and benefit? And our religion is beautiful. Our religion is truly beautiful. And these individuals would love to flourish within our community, but are we creating the right environment within our community where they can attend majalis, where they can come and their loud noises or would not disrupt others? And it's quite interesting, and I really have to mention this, because before, a couple of days ago, I mentioned that I was attending this majlis, I was attending this conference to speak, and a lady in our community, an elderly lady in our community said, well, if someone has a disabled child, why don't they just stay at home? Because they will, if they come, they may ruin it for others, and others want to benefit from the lecture. And I wish I was making this up. I really do wish I was making this up. But this is actually a reality. People feel like if you have a disability, if you're disruptive to others, then staying at home is perhaps the best way, because you will ruin it for others. And this is something that has been voiced, and this is a wrong mentality. And the only way that we can change this mentality is with conferences like this. The only way we can change this mentality is when we come up and we talk about disability, we talk about our centers, how our centers are operating, and if we are creating the right environments for those with a disability to flourish, so that those with a disability or parents with a child with a disability can walk in the center with their head held up high and know that their needs are being taken care of. And a very, very important point, that the brother mentioned is about, a lot of people say, how do we approach people with a disability? Well, you approach them like you approach everyone else. And if you want to help them, then you ask if they need any help. So the final speaker of tonight is Sister Azra Hassan Ali, who is a pediatric speech and language therapist with 20 years of experience. She set up the Learning Support Department at the Shia Afna Ashari Madrasa back in 1999 for children with additional needs. Azra is passionate about transforming her knowledge and skills to community projects and has spent 22 years campaigning for a better awareness and inclusivity in our communities. Her topic today is our journey towards inclusivity, which will be a reflection on how one community has challenged itself to be accountable, open-minded and inclusive to all, inspired by the Holy Quran and the Ahlul Bayt. And this is the final speech of tonight, so please do welcome her with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Esteemed scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I begin in the name of He who loves us all, because of our strengths, our needs, and everything that makes each of us unique. And I seek permission from our esteemed scholars. I seek permission from our esteemed scholars more qualified than I to share my thoughts and experiences today. And Jazakallah to the Amanati team for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. To wake everyone up, I'm going to start with an activity. First, I'd like you to take 20 seconds to look around the room and to count as many blue things as you can see. And I will be asking for a number. Go. Okay, stop. Looking straight ahead here to the front of the room, raise your hand if you can tell me exactly how many yellow things you saw. Looking straight ahead. 0, 1. But you're all looking a little bit unsure. You're confused. It's a difficult task, right? When we set our intention to do or see one thing, that is what we will see, do, say, or think. And in doing so, look how much we miss out on. You only set out to notice a particular color and missed out on everything else. Now imagine how much of our God-given potential do we fail to realize by limiting ourselves to only noticing, accepting, and including particular people who seem worthy of our sight in our minds. Allah gave us this ability to see, to truly notice, accept, and include everything and everyone around us, and to see the beauty in everyone, even when their speech or behavior or physical appearance does not fit our picture of normal. So, why is it then that our masjids, community centers, majalis, our speech, thoughts, feelings, and attitudes are biased towards neurotypical children and adults? Let's turn to the best of books for guidance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and we have revealed the book to you, explaining clearly everything, and a guidance and a mercy and good news for those who submit. Allah did not say He created the Quran or Islam or this beautiful or inspiring world for normally developing children and adults. He said, for those who submit. You're awake. And if you have ever heard the dua of an adult with special needs at Fajr, or the way that a child or an adult instantly calms on hearing the Holy Quran, you will know that they are of those who submit. So where are they? Why are they not a regular visible presence in our centers, madrasas, gatherings and functions? At the age of 16, I began teaching at our local madrasa in Hujjat Stanmore, and at the time we had a special needs class for children with disabilities. They used a separate entrance, meaning no one had any real interaction with them apart from their teachers. At 18, I began university to study speech sciences, which would qualify me as a speech and language therapist. And during that first year, all I could think about was, why is all of this knowledge and skills that I'm blessed to be receiving, well, it could and should be shared with the Muslim community, so our children with additional needs can access the madrasa curriculum and be with their peers. At exactly the same time, an amazing mother of a child who happens to have Down syndrome approached me, knowing what I was studying, and said, in mainstream schools there are accommodations for children with special needs so they can integrate with their peers and access the same curriculum or a similarly adapted curriculum. Why can't madrasa do the same? I had no answer. Why couldn't we? And isn't Allah's timing perfect? So I put forward a proposal to the principal at the time, who could not have been more encouraging and supportive, and the Learning Support Department was established, which catered for those children whose parents wanted them to be included in mainstream classrooms. So lesson number 1, the fact that someone in a position of authority was willing to take this leap of faith in an idea against huge amounts of stigma, that was a great support and something for us all to learn from. So if any of you here today are listening and are on a senior management team or a decision-making committee, please use your power in the way that Allah wishes. You are in your position because He has placed you there. Challenge stereotypes and help to create an inclusive community. Okay, but look, the road was not so smooth, yes? It never is. A few years later, when the Learning Support Department was well established, we were providing support for children under the age of 9, boys and girls over the age of 9. Someone said, hold up a minute. What about the boys over the age of 9? And as a woman, I was in charge only of the little children and the girls. And they were right. Why were we not providing support for the boys as well? Now, it's notoriously difficult to convince male volunteers to join the team, especially those with no experience of supporting children with additional needs, but alhamdulillah, we did. Now, of course, they were just volunteers with very little experience or teaching background, but very keen and willing to learn. So the next step was to provide training, and I had already created a training program, which is still being used today. So it seems like an easy fix, right? It wasn't. Here came one of our first obstacles. Sadly, the next principal of the madrasa said, no, you cannot provide training. It is haram for a woman to do so, according to Ayatollah Sistani. Those male volunteers left because they felt ill-equipped to do their job, and the saddest thing was that the male students eventually did too. The loss was not mine for not being able to provide training. It was a loss for us even today, our entire community, that we denied an Islamic education and social environment to those children with special needs. An education that the Almighty, not me, that the Almighty says is for everyone. Now at this point you're either going to be shocked, oh, our marja''s names were used in that way, or you might be thinking, I don't understand the problem, that was years ago, it's 2022. Children with special needs have been on the agenda for many years now. But children and adults with special needs are not agenda items. They are keys to our akhirah in as much as every single person in our community is. And every single person has a right to access the beauty that our communities have to offer, whether they are labeled with a disability or not. The World Health Organization describes barriers as being more than just physical obstacles. It defines barriers as factors in a person's environment that limit their functioning and create disability. It's interesting to note that you won't find in the Quran or a hadith a word that translates to the term disabilities. Instead, Allah describes those who have specific needs in terms of their specific needs. Perhaps they have a physical need or a visual impairment. Allah, in His wisdom, as the brother just mentioned, already knew about this social construct, this social model of disability. And He showed us to look, just look, at the beautiful human being in front of you and his or her potential. Yes, they have needs, but that is not everything about them. So let's think for a moment. Who controls participation, inclusion, and acceptance in our communities? Is it the person's level of impairment or the barriers that we put up to their participation? Who creates the dis in disability? Now, some of you might say, well, look, what is stopping a family from bringing their child or teenager or adult brother or sister to the mosque? And you're right. It is a two-way process. Families need to feel confident and hold their heads up high when bringing their family members to the mosque with disabilities. But we also have a responsibility to guarantee that they will not be met with awkward smiles, whispers, turned heads, inappropriate comments, or requests to leave because they're being disruptive. Let's dig deep and examine our hearts. What exactly do our hearts feel, and what is our self-talk when an adult with Down syndrome enters the room, or a child in a wheelchair takes up the space of 4 people, or a teenager with a learning disability talks loudly during the majlis? Because we all know that what runs through our hearts and minds ultimately manifests in behavior towards these families. Our learning support department is thriving, alhamdulillah. We have fought to overcome stigmas and challenges. For example, more and more parents are confident to come forward and share that their child has special needs, so we can provide them with the support they need. And more teachers no longer feel scared when a child with additional needs enters the room and leave them to the side saying, oh, their learning support assistant will sort them out. In Shahr Ramadan, my good friend brought her daughter to a hifz program, and her daughter happens to have Down syndrome, and I wish I had recorded her voice because she so beautifully and very, very loudly vocalized all the way through the recitations. But alhamdulillah, no one flinched, and if they did, the mother didn't care. She sat there proudly because her daughter had a right to be there like every other person in the room. On the whole, no one looked scornfully. No one asked her to move to a separate room. Her voice was a beautiful sound alongside the Quran being recited. Now, let's go back to madrasa. Not every child there gets one-to-one support. Sometimes the teachers just need to be made aware of what the child's additional needs are and how to meet those needs in the environment. But the one thing we have done is that every child has what we call a communication passport. It's an A4 document that stays in their bag, and it lets the teachers know what are their strengths and needs, what are their likes and dislikes, and how can they best be supported. Once I met with a teacher to discuss the communication passport of a child, and this child's mother was also a teacher and actually a renowned speaker. And at the start of my meeting, the teacher looked at me aghast and said, "Her child has a disability?" Subhanallah. Now, of course, it begs the thought that if our teachers harbor these feelings in their heart, the very people who should provide a safe, inclusive and accepting space for our children at madrasa, disability or not, we have a long way to go. I wonder what sins the parents committed to be punished like this. At least in a wheelchair the child can't run. My child exhausts me. Why bring him to mosque if he can't be quiet during majlis? He's a grown 32-year-old man. Oh, I'm so sorry your son has a disability. You know no one's going to marry your daughter, right? No, you don't need to invite that family. They won't attend anyway. Realistically, these are the things that families are hearing. And I'm hearing you tut, and I'm seeing you shake your heads. But this is sadly our reality. and sadly just a few of the comments that some, not all, but some families face. So why would they attend community events? Please, let's strive to ensure that families do not fear these consequences by attending our community gatherings. In Surah Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us not to mock another qawm, another group. And inshallah from today, we will promise to take steps to really live these words of advice. As Sheikh said earlier, it's not enough to just recite Quran and give ourselves a pat on the back on Eid Day when we've completed the recitation of one Holy Quran. Recite one ayah and really bring it to life. In this way we can really call ourselves Muslims. Now you might be thinking, well, inclusivity is great and I understand it's our God-given responsibility to be this way, but what on earth am I supposed to say to someone, to a child or an adult with a disability? So here are a couple of things that we can do. Number one, look at the person, not the disability. Let's see first a person whose heart yearns to establish a relationship with Allah, just as mine and yours do. I'm not denying that people have disabilities, but don't we all have needs? My times tables knowledge is really dodgy, like really dodgy. I don't understand every single word of the Holy Quran that I recite. My mind has a tendency to ruminate over past events, and Sheikh, your lectures are really helpful, but they still do because I'm human. I'm not as sporty as I used to be. These are my needs, but you don't look at me and define me by them. They certainly weren't mentioned in the introduction today. So as you think about your needs, let's remind ourselves with humility that just because sometimes we can visibly see the needs of some children and adults, that does not mean that they should be disadvantaged because of that. Number two, let's forgive the past. Perhaps the stigma, the negative assumptions, the challenges and obstacles, the fear, or anything else that we bring with us when we hear the mention of special needs. Perhaps it's the result of upbringing, negative messaging, negative experiences. It's okay. Value where you're coming from because it's a catalyst for change. Let's not judge each other, ourselves, our past decisions, or the students and families we interact with. Let's be dedicated to moving away from those feelings or stigmas, and let's, most importantly, not allow these filter through generations. Number three, educate yourself. At our madrasa, we run an annual Disability Awareness Day, where we get external speakers, including adults with disabilities, to talk about their needs, and most importantly, how they would like the students to interact with them. And these include Down syndrome, autism, hearing impairment, visual impairment, physical disability, and learning difficulties. So if you don't know, ask. Everyone has a phone, and we all have Google. Use it. Number four, speak to the child, the adult, or the family. They have an opinion, and they would love for you to be brave enough to approach them. You will not be causing offense if you speak with love, respect, and genuine curiosity. Ask them what they would like from you. Ask them how they would like to participate. When you hold a majalis or a baloo celebration for your child, invite them, not just to sit at the side and tick your boxes. Wow, amazing, you invited a child with disability. You're so kind. No. Invite them to actually take part. Because believe me, and I know that you all know this, the salawat of a child with additional needs is the loudest and the most heartfelt salawat you will ever hear. What would our Imam think when he returns and he sees that we have left the most beautiful people behind? Didn't our Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam absolutely love to hear the adhan recited by Bilal? Bilal, who had a speech difficulty. If the greatest man who walked the earth could revere a man with speech difficulties, why do we find it so difficult to push past our stigmas and assumptions to discover the real beauty in the people around us? So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Let's begin today. I really pray that in His name, this is the start of something amazing, where we can all continue on this journey of inclusivity together, that we can share ideas and learn from each other. Let go of your stigmas and your fears, and let's open our eyes to not only see the blue, the yellow, the green, but every color, every person, and really believe that you're capable of creating a community that enables every single person feel worthy of swimming in the glory that is His rahmah. Jazakallah for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Take these points forward with us. And it's, firstly, I would like to thank the Amanati organization for organizing this event. And I truly would say this because I've met every single person behind the Amanati organization. They are sincere individuals working really hard to make a change. And as I said before, they really put all effort and time into producing their program. So inshallah we are able to support them. I would also like to thank the Al-Fawti Foundation for making this event possible and to also help in the organization process of the event. And to everyone that has attended today, thank you so much for attending and staying until the end. Because many times that people do not, it's human nature, many people do not care about issues that do not affect them personally. If they're not disabled or don't have a family with a disability, they do not care about the issue of disability. But we all know that the issue of disability is a very, very important topic within our community. And I hope that going forward that we all work really hard to create awareness, because it's not about whether we have a disability or not, or we know someone that has a disability or not. It's about creating awareness in the community. And I hope going forward, each person asks themselves, what am I going to do today or tomorrow to help create awareness within our community? Because it's not just the physical disabilities within our community. I remember a couple of, I believe it was a Muharram Majalis, there was a girl running around the Majlis, and this woman kept shouting at her and said, sit down, sit down, sit down, and she was not talking. And then her mother came running and she said, my daughter has selective mutism, she doesn't speak. And this woman was like, why are you not answering me? Why are you running? So sometimes it's not even about the physical disabilities, there are invisible disabilities, there are conditions that we must be aware of. So I hope going forward we are able to create more awareness with that. Number two, I really hope also that we become aware not only about disability within our community, but about the issues of disability outside our community. There's so many injustices happening outside our community that we need to be aware of. For example, Down syndrome. I don't know if many of you know, but there is this whole campaign in Britain, in the UK, in England, Scotland and Wales. There is a cut-off time to have an abortion. I believe it's about around 23 weeks and 6 days, the cut-off time to have an abortion, because obviously the child gets formed into a human, an infant. But if you are pregnant with a child with Down syndrome, you can have an abortion at any time during your pregnancy, even if it's in the later stages where the baby is completely formed. And many people with Down syndrome end up having a normal life. Some people with Down syndrome are independent. But when a mother is pregnant with a child with Down syndrome, she can have an abortion. And there are campaigns to stop this, but still it hasn't been put into place. So I hope that we become aware about disability, not only within our communities, but outside our communities as well. And lastly, I want to say that Islam is about, it includes everyone. As the Quran says that we created you from different tribes, different communities, that you may get to know one another. And I hope next time you see someone walk through the door that has Down syndrome or has an intellectual ability, that we are able to go up to them, able to say salam, able to include them within our community and within our organizations. And I just really wanted to mention my own personal experience with disability and why I'm so passionate about this. Growing up, as you saw my brother at the start of the program, he was born with Down syndrome, and I remember my parents' reaction and how when he was born and how my father was going to the hospital back and forward. And as you know, many people with Down syndrome also have a heart condition, so they would have like a humidifier in the room, and we used to sleep all in the same room. And all these And growing up with disability, I was always aware of disability, but then I became aware that the community are not aware of disabilities. So I became very passionate about that. And I just want to say that also my niece is disabled. She cannot walk, she cannot talk, she's paralyzed, I would say, from the waist below. And she has an extreme intellectual disability. And that disability was because the pregnancy was completely healthy. During my sister's labor, the oxygen had cut off by only a few seconds. And that caused the child to be completely disabled. So sometimes we look at disability as if it's a genetic thing. If you genetically, some families have disability, but the disability within my family, both my niece and my brother, is not genetic. It's just caused by chance, and Allah willed what He willed, and we have to accept what He willed. And alhamdulillah, I would say this from experience, growing up with a brother with disability, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be as humble as I am today. He humbled me in the best possible ways I could say. So I really do thank Allah for granting us this opportunity to see and to be raised with a brother with a disability. And inshallah, going forward, we are able to make change for the disabled within our community. Once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you so much for the speakers. Sheikh Shamali stayed till the end. Thank you so much for your inspirational words. Sister Asra, brother Naqfi Rizvi, and Ayatollah Sayyid Fadl Milani, and of course my brother Sayyid Ali Al-Alawi, and all the other speakers today. Thank you so much for your inspirational words. So I would leave you here. You've been here far too long. But inshallah, going forward, follow Amanati on social media. Please follow their page, see what they're up to, and please help them in continuing this message, in spreading disability and the awareness of disability. So thank you so much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.